Welcome back to page 121. Today we're going to take a look at a dragon that was out 40 years ago this month. Dragon number 110. For $3.50 we got 10th anniversary issue, mid-level AD&D adventure, and all about Elminster. This would be about a year or so, a little over a year, before we met the Forgotten Realms. Actually, we were aware of the Forgotten Realms. I remember reading stuff about the Forgotten Realms in the very early 80s, but it was coming. And there we have a unicorn grazing by a fallen warrior of some kind. I always like this cover, very evocative. I even used this actually as a depiction in one of the games I ran a million years ago. I just kind of held the cover up. I said, this is what you see. It was pretty good. So when we turn inside, we see that the quest continues with Talisman from Games Workshop, distributed out of Columbia, Maryland. Games Workshop, of course, from England. And then we have Rollmaster, the classic FRP, fantasy roleplay system from Iron Crown Enterprises. Rollmaster, a cut above the rest. And these guys were out of Charlottesville, Virginia. Some good ideas in Rollmaster. A lot of... It's slow to play down, in my opinion. Dragon Magazine. Look at this. Table of contents. Look at that. And we got the Ares section still. I know the Ares section is not around much longer, and that's a shame. We get letters to the editor, and then editorial on the first decade being behind them. World Gamers Guide. If you don't have gamers where you live in Tokyo, why, here you can find a gentleman who wants to play 40 years ago. Come play with us. Chaosium Incorporated in Albany, California. Enter the world of King Arthur and of King of all the Britons. What makes him a king? And then the forum, kind of enhanced letters to the editor. Terror of the Lichmaster from Citadel Miniatures. Terror of the Lichmaster, the supplement for Warhammer, comprising complete scenario. Look at that. And again, out of Columbia, Maryland, from the UK. The Cult of the Dragon by Ed Greenwood, describing the dreaded Dracolich and the sorcerers who create them. I remember this article very well because Dracolich has popped up in one of my next games. I really liked this article. I love the idea of Dracoliches. I've used them many, many times. Incidentally, because they're kind of skeletal, I have edged weapons do half damage against them. Makes them way more formidable. Continuing our article, we get an ad here for the Oriental Bruce Lee martial arts games. Sometimes it's more than a game, from IIE Games Corporation, Pentagon, British Columbia, in Canada. Finishing out our article, or continuing our article on Dracolich, we get an ad for Killer, Giant Killer Robots, Macton, from Telsorian Games, out of Aptos, California. And new modules for Twilight 2000 for Game Designers Workshop, T2000. I played it a few times. It was interesting. Finishing out our Dracolich article, we have an ad for Shadow Graphics. Presents Valshia by Parkinson. You can get an 18 by 24 print. There you go. One of only 500. Dual Track, the biggest Car Wars supplement ever, from Steve Jackson Games out of Austin, Texas. Yes, I also played Car Wars a little bit. For Better or Norse, 1. Equal time for members of the Vanir. A while ago we introduced the, of the many pantheons presented in Legends and Lore, the Norse mythos is one of the most popular. They're very popular at my table. All of us kind of started out following the Norse, and then as we expanded, of course, we added Greyhawk gods and stuff, but there's still several Odin and Thor worshippers at my table. So the Vanir, famous for their war with the Aesir. So the Aesir are the gods, Odin and such, and the Vanir fought against them. So they get a nice breakdown here. Always useful to get deities in an episode or issue of the Dragon. We have an ad for Battle Force from Fasta Corporation when they were based out of Chicago. Battle Force, the early days of Battle Tech. And then you'll be amazed by the tales we'll tell you in Amazing Stories. It's a risk-free offer for us from 1986 when TSR was publishing Amazing Stories. Continuing our article for the Vanir, we have an ad for Bushido from Fantasy Games Unlimited out of Roslyn, New York. Never played that one. Finishing out our Vanir article, we have the Sky Realms of Jarun. LA in July, Milwaukee in August, and then, back to Jarun. And these guys are out of Mission Santa Cruz, California. State of War, the year is 2000. They said it would never happen again, but it has. Civil War in the U.S. From Game Systems out of Miami, Florida. And Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. The Turtles. I was a little old for the Turtles, but my nephews were not. And one of my nieces was crazy about them, too. So I watched a lot of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And these are from Palladium Books, Detroit, Michigan. And a Steranko cover. Jim Steranko, famous artist, comic book artist, among other things. Interesting. For Better or Norse 2, a few new descriptions of some old favorite. The article earlier, Better or Norse 1, describes that they got 2 manuscripts almost simultaneously, so they split it into this. So we get a look at some of the other Norse deities, Njord, Frey. We have Bushido miniatures from Ralpartha Enterprises out of Cincinnati, Ohio. Let's take a look at some of these. I got a lot of the samurai type things. I don't remember having any of these though. Continuing our article, a new look at old deities. Then we have an ad for Behind Enemy Lines. They'll see us at Origins. The Companions from Bath, Maine. And here we have the write-ups of the gods. I always loved when we got stuff like this in Dragon. The Arcanum, or Arcanum. The magical secrets, the legendary Second Age of Atlantis, are revealed in the Arcanum by Bard Games. Available at Walden Books, B. Dalton Books, and finer hobby stores in the U.S., Canada, and Australia. Never saw that. I was wondering if it was chasing after Unearthed Arcana with the Arcanum. I realized it didn't necessarily have to be. It just seemed coincidental. Guidelines for submitting an article to the Dragon. Trek the Unknown with the Complete Strategist. And they were all over the East Coast. I think the only one left is the one in New York. If you know different, please let me know. I know one of them just closed. All About Elminster, or to be precise, Everything He's Willing to Let Us Know, by Ed Greenwood. Elminster, obviously, Ed Greenwood's big baby. I liked Elminster well enough. It got a little that he became kind of a deus ex machina for my tastes. He'd just kind of come in and make everything right for our heroes. But still, an interesting character, and I liked some of the articles about him. Psyworld from Fantasy Games Unlimited, the game of psionic powers. And these guys are out of Roslyn, New York. Continuing out, Elminster. We have an ad for Illuminati, the fast, exciting play-by-mail game from Adventure Systems out of Houston, Texas. And Clean Up Your Act with the revised D&D player character sheet from TSR, Products of Your Imagination. Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, of course. Continuing on, Elminster still going. Supremacy, Omni's Choice. It's a board game where you lead a superpower. Love Supremacy. Can't get my wife to play it with me anymore. I was kind of a jerk when I played it. One of these days we're going to have to crack this out. My sons have never played it. I think they'll like it. These guys were Supremacy Games out of Buffalo, New York. The quest is over. Dragon Clothing. I never had any fantasy wear. These guys were fantasy wear out of Waukesha, Wisconsin. Neat stuff. Wonder if you could still get something like this. I've never looked. Finishing out our Elminster article, we have noticed that Recon is back, and Palladium Books has it. The revised Recon's first and only role-playing game of modern warfare. Some Palladium Books out of Detroit, Michigan. The Role of Computers, a new column devoted to gaming with software. I have to admit, I didn't have a computer at the time. The only guy in our group that did have one left us shortly after, not too long after this was published. So computers were not a real thing in my life yet. But I'm sure I glanced at it, but I don't remember actually reading it. Continuing our computer article. Test Drive of Starship. Introduction to Starfleet Battles. I liked Starfleet Battles. I played that several times. My buddy had it. And this was Traps. The Troll is back. Grimtooth's Traps and Grimtooth's Traps 2 are now back in print. These were huge in the early 80s. Off-the-wall armies, zany armies on the march. And all this is brought to us by Task Force Games of Amarillo, Texas. Grimtooth's Traps made it into a lot of dungeons. That old club I belonged to, it was hard to walk past the table without hearing something from a Grimtooth's Trap. They were very popular in the early 80s. Continuing our article about the computers, and then finishing up our editorial from the first decade by Kim Mohan. Dragon Damage Revisited, finishing the figures for physical attacks. Dragons were always a little weak for me. I beefed up their damage quite a bit early in the game, and here we are with more. I never allowed subdual damage either. Never liked the idea of beating a dragon up and taking its treasure. Half the game's named for them, for crying out loud. You shouldn't be able to mug them for their lunch money. New Armory paint set, Metallic, paint set 2 from the Armory. And the Armory, they were available in fine stores in Illinois, Granite City, Mini Mall Hobbies. Don't know if they're still there. Mount Prospect, Games Plus. They're very much still there. They've moved across the street 25 years ago. We went there. My wife, my oldest son, and I went there. First time my wife had been to the new store that they've only been in for 25 years. And she was like a kid in a candy store. She was so excited. She thought it was so gorgeous. Ended up picking up a lot of dice. She's a dice collector, and a couple of dice bags. Are you missing a Dragon magazine in your lair? Here's your chance to pick up your back issues. And this, of course, was from Lake Geneva, mail order hobby shop out of Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. The House in the Frozen Lands. And this is mid-level adventure for the AD&D game. I do remember reading this one. I don't think I used anything from it. I might have used some of the ice rules. So we get a lot of this adventure. We get a flyer for Amazing Stories. You could subscribe there, or Dragon Summertime Subscription Special. And continuing out our adventure, I like that they put these adventures in the middle of the book. You could bend the staples out, take it out, use it at your table. I never did, obviously, but if I used an adventure at all, I would just bring the whole magazine with. But this is an interesting idea. I like that. Long adventure. Don't really remember much about it. And then we have previews from TSR. And what do we have coming? DL13, Dragons of Truth for Dragonlance. Dragonlance Legends 87 calendar by various TSR artists. REF2 player character record sheets, AD&D game. I still use these. I bought a bunch when Toys R Us had them on closeout for $2 each. I bought a ton of them. The Immortal Storm for the D&D Immortals set adventure. X11 Sage of the Shadow Lord for D&D expert. Marvel Children of the Atom for the X-Men and Mutants in Marvel Superheroes. Amazing Stories Anthology. Sorcerer's Crown, another adventure game book. And then in July, we could expect... Now this was August, that's weird. This is July. We could expect AD&D Dungeoneer's Survival Guide. I like that. I like that book quite a bit, actually. Terrible Swift Sword. 3 Days of Gettysburg game. Barbarossa. Marvel Superheroes game, Advanced Rule Set by Jaundiced Jeff Grubb. Marvel Superheroes Minis. The Paramount game. The Broadway game. Hit Show on Broadway. The Honeymooners game. Bang Zoom. And Night of Illusion. Endless Quest. Book 33. The Wizard's Boy. So, little pros for us as we enjoy our issue of Dragon. Don't remember reading this one. By this time I was in a new job. I was working a lot of hours and couldn't put quite as much emphasis on gaming as I had. But I still loved it. So finishing out that fiction, we go to an ad for Amazing Stories, now on sale, July of '86. Amazing Stories out of Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Label your letter. If you're going to send a letter to the Dragon, make sure you label it and write on. Got questions about an article, a subject you want to cover, go ahead and send it to the editor. And then we have the Aries Science Fiction Gaming section. This is the Watery Worlds of the Frontier. Interesting. Knowledge is power. Skill systems for Gamma World characters. I'm never a fan of skill systems in a game like Gamma World. Gamma World 4th edition especially introduced skills and even player character classes. Not much of a fan. I'll do a video on those one of these days. Continuing out our skills. Wow, long article on skills. The unfortunate thing about Dragon at this time was this was after Gary Gygax had left TSR, so we didn't have a ton of AD&D stuff coming our way, nor did we have a lot of Greyhawk stuff on the horizon. Greyhawk would pick up again in 87, 88, but it's kind of a lean time for that. Marvel File, Riders on the Storm, the various Ghost Riders, Johnny Blaze, Carter and Lincoln Slade, Ghost Rider, yeah, big Marvel character. Hero System will knock your block off and does not compute. Simplicity not allowed. It's hard to find a crunchier game than Champions, but it's a game that I enjoyed the crunch in. Hero Systems take you an hour or more to sit down with the books and craft up a character. I would usually make it after I talked to my players. They would tell me what they wanted, and I'd go ahead and I'd make their Spider-Man or Captain America analog. We'd go over it and tweak it a little bit together, and off we'd play. And this is from Hero Games, which was then out of Iron Crown Enterprises, Charlottesville, Virginia. I forgot they were under IC for a while. Going for a Swim, Underwater Action, and Star Frontiers Gaming. Stuff like this is hard to come by in sci-fi gaming. Not a ton about scuba diving and stuff like that. Tech level 4 or 5 stuff. 5 or 6, I guess. But pretty interesting. So Star Frontiers. I liked Star Frontiers a bunch. We have an ad here from Fantasy Games Unlimited, Roslyn, New York, for Chivalry and Sorcery and Daredevils. Just a couple of games they had. These guys also published Space Opera. Piece of the Action, a new secret society for paranoia gamers. There you go. I played a little Paranoia back in the day. Not a ton. Villains and Vigilantes, a superhero role-playing game. Fantasy Games Unlimited, Roslyn, New York again. Gamer's Guide, kind of personal ads. Slightly less expensive way to advertise in the Dragon. Duncan Company used to be one of the main advertisers in the body of it. There you go. Full 144-page set editions of Deities and Demigods with Elric and Cthulhu Mythos. Wow. Sell for up to $50 at collector's circles. They go for a lot more than that now. And then we have an index to advertisers, and then the End of the Dragon Damage article from page 44. The convention calendar. Jump in your Wayback Machine. You can attend these conventions. Dragon Mirth. I love Dragon Mirth. Lots of fun. SnarfQuest. Larry Elmore. SnarfQuest ran a long, long time in Dragon. And then, of course, Wormy. I don't know how much longer we've got on Wormy. I don't think it's terribly long. And this is 3 pages of Wormy. 4 pages of Wormy. Wow, bonus. And then we have a fire sale. Subscribe to Dragon while it's hot. No, we're not going out of business. In fact, they're all fired up. 12 issues for only $24, so $2 each. It would have been a savings. I should have done it. And then the back cover, we take a look at Adventure Beckons Come to Middle-earth by Iron Crown Enterprises. Middle-earth role-playing. MERPS, Middle-earth role-playing system. A World Apart. Charlottesville, Virginia. I had quite a bit of MERP stuff over the years. So there you have it. Not a ton of articles in this one. Not a bunch of stuff in here that I would have jumped on as a DM or even a player. But still a solid issue of the Dragon. Let me know. Maybe this is your favorite issue. Maybe this is the first one you bought, something like that. Let me know in the comments below. Let me know also if you enjoyed seeing these dragons. They seem to be popular. But let me know what you think about them. And also, please take a look at the Patreon. See if you can help me out there. Like and subscribe. If you enjoyed the video, tell your friends. Let's keep growing the channel. And that's really all I've got to say. So I want to thank you for your time. Thanks for watching. And I'll see you next time on page 121.